going to happen. Whether it happens this year or next year, that is undoubtedly in the roadmap for Jake Paul.
Nikisa, give me the stip.
The fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson generated a massive amount of buzz, but it wasn't without its fair share of controversy. Jake Paul, known for his brash attitude and social media fame, has made waves in the boxing world by fighting older, often out of prime opponents. His manager, Nikisa Badarian, recently confirmed that Paul's next opponent would be none other than legendary Mexican boxer Canelo Alvarez, although not without stirring up opinions and debates in the boxing community. Badarian, a key figure in Paul's rise in the sport, offered a bold prediction regarding the fight's dynamics. According to him, the fight would unfold similarly to how he had envisioned the Mike Tyson showdown. Tyson, a veteran in the sport, would be dangerous in the early rounds due to his experience and power. However, as the fight progressed, his stamina would wane, allowing Jake Paul to take control, as his youth and conditioning would eventually outweigh Tyson's years in the ring. Badarian's comments came across almost as though he had the script for the fight written out in advance, but they also reflected a well-known narrative in Paul's career fighting opponents with age or physical limitations, making it an unfair matchup from the get-go. The Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul fight was widely ridiculed by fans and commentators alike. Parodies and comedic skits flooded social media, mocking the idea of a 58-year-old Tyson fighting Paul, who is 28 years old. One particular parody depicted Paul as an overconfident fighter, poking fun at the idea that Tyson's legendary status would be enough to make the fight interesting. The skit imagined Tyson as the victor, despite the bizarre nature of the matchup, with jokes about the fight being more of a spectacle than an actual sporting contest. Despite the criticism, Badarian remained steadfast in defending his fighter. He pointed out that Jake Paul had done more for boxing both inside and outside the ring than many of the professional fighters who had been in the sport for much longer. According to Badarian, Paul's ability to bring in big names, promote fights, and draw crowds made him a significant force in the world of boxing, even if his in-ring skills were still developing. He even went so far as to claim that Paul had already defeated some of the best fighters in the world in record time, finishing opponents in the first or second round, something many professional boxers hadn't managed to do. Badarian also took the opportunity to comment on the potential future matchup between Jake Paul and UFC star Alex Pereira. He dismissed the idea that Pereira would pose a significant threat to Paul, stating that Pereira's record, despite his impressive MMA background, was not enough to suggest he could handle a boxing match with Jake Paul. He also alluded to Pereira's high number of losses and the idea that boxing was a different sport altogether, one that Paul was more prepared for due to his focus and training. On the other hand, UFC commentator Joe Rogan expressed his concern about Tyson's involvement in a fight against Paul. Rogan stated that, while Tyson may have looked good on television and appeared to be in great physical shape, the reality of training for a fight was different. Rogan criticized the lack of sparring footage of Tyson, mentioning that it was easy for Tyson to look good in short bursts of training, but the true test of a fighter's stamina came when they were required to go multiple rounds in a real fight. Rogan's remarks underscored the sense that Tyson, despite his legendary status, might not be ready for a serious bout against a much younger opponent. Tyson, once known for his fearsome aggression in the ring, had reportedly undergone significant personal growth, turning to meditation and focusing on maintaining peace in his life. Many fans and commentators found this change in Tyson's demeanor to be disappointing, particularly in contrast to his younger, more volatile self. Deez Nice, a TV personality, expressed his disappointment in Tyson, stating that the fighter was no longer the same person who used to instill fear in opponents with just a glance. Tyson's transformation from a feared animal in the ring to a more tranquil figure left many questioning whether he still had the fire that made him a boxing legend. Yet, despite the criticisms, Jake Paul's manager, Badarian, continued to defend the legitimacy of the fight. He pointed out that, just like Floyd Mayweather's much-discussed match against Conor McGregor, a fight that many felt was a money grab Paul versus Tyson had the potential to be a major commercial success. Vidarian also noted that the fight would be fully sanctioned, dismissing the idea that it was anything less than a legitimate contest. He seemed confident that the sanctioning bodies, including the WBC, would have no choice but to allow the fight to happen. After all, in the past, they had sanctioned even more lopsided matchups such as Mayweather versus McGregor. Vidarian also hinted at the possibility of Jake Paul fighting Canelo Alvarez in the future. He confirmed that there were no special conditions or 2-minute rounds for this potential fight, signaling that the match would be a legitimate boxing contest with all the stakes of a major championship. Whether this fight happens next year or the year after, according to Vidarian, it is an inevitability in Jake Paul's career roadmap. He even hinted that Canelo might be interested in a cruiserweight bout, though it would be a stretch for someone like Conor McGregor, who had recently called out Jake Paul to step into the ring. On the flip side, Conor McGregor continued to take jabs at Jake Paul, particularly after the Tyson fight. McGregor posted a controversial tweet suggesting that Paul's next opponent could be Pritchard Colon, a former boxer who suffered severe neurological and physical impairments after a tragic injury in the ring. The tweet sparked immediate backlash for its insensitivity, but McGregor seemed undeterred. He also mocked Jake Paul's career, calling him out for facing older opponents instead of actual contenders. McGregor's feud with Paul, both online and in the media, has been ongoing for years, with both fighters engaging in heated exchanges. In response to McGregor's constant criticism, Jake Paul took to social media to retaliate, mocking McGregor for his past legal troubles, including a court decision in which McGregor was penalized for assaulting a woman. Paul also called out UFC President Dana White, accusing him of being abusive toward his wife. The back and forth between Paul, McGregor, and White has become a spectacle in its own right, distracting from the actual fights and focusing more on personal drama. As for the fight with Tyson, many fans and analysts saw it as a cash grab rather than a legitimate sporting event. Tommy Fury, another boxer who has fought Jake Paul, described the fight as a dance, emphasizing that neither fighter was truly invested in the contest. According to Fury, the fight was more about making money than about proving who was the better fighter. He pointed out that neither Tyson nor Paul had to work particularly hard for the win, which further fueled the criticism that the fight lacked integrity. Meanwhile, boxing legend Oscar De La Hoya also weighed in on the fight, suggesting that it was nothing more than a scripted event. De La Hoya, who has experience in the ring, argued that Tyson had been held back and that Paul was essentially given a victory for the sake of maintaining the spectacle. De La Hoya's criticism reflected the broader sentiment that Jake Paul's boxing career is built on carefully curated matchups rather than genuine competition. Despite the overwhelming criticism, Jake Paul seems undeterred. He continues to challenge some of the biggest names in boxing, including Canelo Alvarez, and remains confident that his star power will be enough to secure these high-profile matchups. Whether or not he will ever face Canelo in a real fight remains to be seen. But one thing is clear, Jake Paul is determined to continue making waves in the world of boxing, no matter how controversial his journey may be. Ultimately, the question remains, will Jake Paul ever truly earn respect as a boxer, or will his career be seen as nothing more than a series of stunts designed to generate money and media attention? Only time will tell, but for now, the spectacle surrounding his fights continues to dominate the headlines.